I recently had my second grandchild, and it's pretty exciting to know that I've got a future generation. And I am an optimist. And boy, my 2-year-old is smarter than heck. But the other side of this, I'm really worried about what kind of world that these kids are coming into. I've been a pediatrician in Eugene for 39 years, and it's been an honor to be able to take care of kids and in a rewarding profession. Increasingly, we're seeing behavior problems in children. There's been increasing concern about the effect of environmental toxins. When I use medications in my practice, I know that they've been studied extensively for safety. The concern I have is the lack of safety studies in use of herbicides and pesticides in the environment. These agents have been identified as neurotoxins. We're seeing exposure in children during their period of time that their brains are developing. Some of these problems, neurologic problems in children, may be coming from exposures to pesticides and herbicides in the environment. There's a shocking lack of information showing safety of these products. Recently, I've been in contact with people from Beyond Toxics, and I'm really thrilled to understand that there's increasing efforts to identify these potential problems. The lack of thought process around how parks are maintained with the thought of safety for our children is appalling to me. We're beginning to see changes. There are places in the country now that are herbicide, pesticide free in the parks. There's a groundswell of support for this. And that gives me optimism for the future. I've got these 2 grandkids. They go to the park every day, and to be straight, I don't know what things are like there. I practice organic gardening and landscaping because I want my lands to be safe. I want it to be a place that my grandkids can come and play, and I don't have to worry about it. Unlike so many other places where I had to think about, are they going to be okay? They can run around my place without any worries. Being an optimist, I believe that with the leadership that's coming from Beyond Toxics and other similar environmental organizations, there's hope.